Last summer, me and 5 of my friends all went on a trip together. We are all women in our early 20s, and because there were so many of us, we got an Airbnb house that was very nice and had enough space to accommodate us all. It was a 3-bedroom house, so we still had to share bedrooms, but there would only be 2 of us in each room, which wasn't that bad. Upstairs had basically just 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. It was my friend Jessica and me in one bedroom, Carly and Taylor in the second, and Alyssa and Brooke in the third. The downstairs of the house had a large kitchen, a living room, and a bedroom. It was a very open and modern house. We rented it on Airbnb from a man named Robert, who was said to own several large houses in the area and used them all as Airbnbs. We had the place rented for 5 days and were happy to see that it looked just like the photos when we got there. After we all arrived at the house, we hung out there for a while and then went to the city for the night. It was a great night, and we had lots of fun. When we got back, we were all pretty tired and pretty much just went to our rooms and fell asleep. The next morning, we all went down to a local breakfast place. When we got up, we were talking. One of my friends, Carly, mentioned how she thought she heard some noises in her bedroom when she was trying to fall asleep. Our friend Taylor, who was the other girl to sleep in that bedroom, said she fell asleep pretty quickly, but did remember hearing the noises as well. But she thought that it was Carly. We talked and joked around about this for a while, that the house was haunted or somebody broke in. Carly maintained that she heard something but also laughed it off with the rest of us. That day was another fun one. We went back to the city as well as to some local parks and kept busy until late at night. Again, we all arrived back on the second night at about midnight. Once again, we were pretty tired and went to our rooms to go to sleep. Each bedroom had 2 beds in it, and I got into mine, and Jessica got into hers. We shut off the lights and tried to fall asleep, but just about a minute after the lights went out, I heard a noise. I ignored it at first, but then I heard it again. It sounded like something brushing against the floor. I couldn't quite tell where it was coming from, but I knew it was in the room. It was completely dark in there, but I knew it wasn't Jessica because I would have heard her get out of her bed. I sat up and asked her what the noise was. She replied that she wasn't sure and then let out a nervous laugh. We laid there silent for a couple of seconds, and everything remained quiet. After a few minutes, I laid back down and closed my eyes to try to get some sleep. But shortly after I did, I heard the noise once again. I really couldn't tell where it was coming from. Then I saw the flashlight to Jessica's phone turn on, and seconds after that, I heard her scream. Then she yelled my name. I asked her what was going on. She was pointing to underneath my bed. I jumped off the end of my bed and we both ran to the doorway. I turned and looked behind me. I could see under the bed was a man's face staring back at us. It looked like he was getting up, so we shut the door and ran to wake up the other girls. We got into the first room and woke them up, and then we all went into the third. But once we were in there, we heard the door down the hall start to open. We decided not to go out and stay in the room and call the police. All 6 of us were in this bedroom and we all wanted to leave, but we knew the man was still out there. We heard footsteps and eventually there was a knock on our door. Taylor yelled that we had called the police and they were on their way. Then the man spoke. He started apologizing, saying there was a misunderstanding. He said that he was Robert and he owned the Airbnb and asked us just to let him in the room. We refused, and then we heard him walk away. A few minutes later, the police showed up. Robert was nowhere to be found. However, we were in his house, and we had the ad to show the police, so they had his information. We all went to a hotel for the rest of our trip, and Robert was found the next day. It creeps me out to think that Robert had been in the house spying on us, probably the whole time we were in there. I was about 8 years old when this creepy incident occurred. Just to give you some context, I'm a girl, and I grew up in this massive apartment complex. Picture this, around 20 buildings, each towering at about 25 floors high, and on each floor, there were 4 apartments. So, we're talking about approximately 2,000 apartments in total. Now, my apartment was situated on the 5th floor, smack in the middle of this bustling complex. So here's what happened. I used to take the bus home from school, and it would drop me off at this corner right across from our complex. To get home, I had to cross the road. One day, as I got off the bus and crossed the road, I noticed some neighborhood kids had drawn a hopscotch game on the sidewalk outside our complex. I loved hopscotch, so I dropped my bag and started playing. It was all fun until, on my second turn, a woman who looked to be in her mid-20s approached me and asked if she could join in. Now I was a shy kid, especially around adults. But I was also polite, so I gave her my stone and let her have a turn. But then, things took a weird turn. She asked if her friends could play too, and here come 3 guys, all in their mid to late 20s. That freaked me out big time because I was already pretty shy around adults, especially strangers, and being alone with them made me incredibly uncomfortable. So, I told the lady they could play, but I had to head home. She gave me a sad look and said she hoped we could be friends. I didn't want to be rude, but I was seriously scared. So, I fibbed and told her I'd go take my school bag home and be right back. I grabbed my bag and bolted out of there. I thought that would be the end of it, but boy was I wrong. The very next day, that lady was waiting for me at the complex gates. She told me how sad she was that I hadn't come back and how I'd hurt her feelings. I tried to explain that my mom made me do my homework, but she persisted, asking if we could play now. I glanced over and there were her friends waiting by a van. She said they wanted to take me to get ice cream at Kiki's. You see, Kiki's was this brand new ice cream place, and every ice cream came with a toy. All my school friends had at least 2 toys each from there, but I knew I couldn't go with her. So I thanked her but declined, saying I couldn't play that day. Well, she got really angry and insisted that I had to go with her. I hated being yelled at, and this was scaring me big time, so I started crying. Surprisingly, the lady quickly backpedaled, apologized, and even gave me a hug. But then she tried to lead me to the van, saying an ice cream would make everything better. I pulled away and started running home, but this time they followed me. I could hear them running after me, and I knew they were faster, so I figured I had to hide from them. I dashed into the underground car park of the closest building and squeezed between 2 cars. I heard them running down the ramp and stop. Then the lady called out, "Do you like hide and seek? Let's play. Ready or not, here we come." I was trembling violently, and I knew they'd find me if I stayed there. So I decided to make a break for it, headed for the elevator. My plan was to take it to the top floor, run down a few floors, and then take it back down. I hoped they'd think I was hiding on the top floor since they'd see the elevator stop there. Now the elevator was on the other side of the car park, so I had to go around 2 corners to reach it. I crept along the wall, staying as low as possible, until I was around the corner. Then, I bolted for the elevator. The elevator was in a small room with a massive door. I got inside but didn't manage to close the door completely. I pressed the UP button and watched as the elevator slowly descended, stopping at nearly every floor. I crept over to the door and peeked out through the crack to see where they were. I spotted them just as I heard the elevator pinging from behind me. Without thinking, I closed the door. The door was huge, and it made a tremendous noise as it closed. Even as I got into the elevator, I knew they'd figure out where I was. The elevator was filled with people, so I squeezed to the back, hiding between 2 boys and a girl I'd seen around before. The girl lived in my building but on a different floor. I watched the elevator doors closing, praying they'd hurry up. Just before they closed, a hand shot between them and they opened again. The woman was there, looking furious. She yelled, "Get out here!" An elderly woman asked what was going on, and the woman claimed I was her daughter who had run away. I was too scared to speak, so I just shook my head and started crying. That's when the girl from my building stepped in, picked me up, and the boy told the woman to leave me alone. Since the elevator was now filled with people who realized what was happening, the woman and her friends disappeared. The girl from my building and the 2 boys walked me home and told my parents what had happened. The police got involved, and after some investigation, I found out years later that the woman and the men were child traffickers. I'll forever be grateful that the boy in the elevator realized something was wrong and stepped in to help. Who knows where I'd be if he hadn't been there. Hello, everyone. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful or entertaining, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Your support motivates us to create more content you'll love. Thanks a million. And if you've just subscribed, please drop a comment saying I subscribed. We'd love to welcome you to our community.